Hello, members. I am so excited to have my friend Erick Bell here. And we will be discussing tonight um, generational wealth. Your future will thank you. I had an opportunity to work with him a few years back on his accounting program with young folks. And he's a professor at Las Positas, and he teaches what I love, financial health. Welcome, Erick. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Veronica. It is always a pleasure just to be in your presence.
Oh,
Your smile, your energy. I'm gonna try and match it.
yes, yes. But you are homegrown. You're from the Bay Area. Tell us a little bit about that.
I am from the Bay Area. I claim everything East Bay. I claim Oakland. I claim San Leandro. I claim San Lorenzo. I claim Hayward. That's where I went to elementary, to high school, to college, all that here in the Bay Area.
Why? And you did not leave. Why did you not leave?
Oh man, we're going there already.
Yeah, come on now, bring it.
Let's talk about fear
Hmm.
and experiences. And so my mother is from Oakland, and she never left. And so I didn't understand what it meant to leave the nest. And so I found a way to find success here. And that translates, right? We're talking about generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know if I'm going too fast, too soon, but I think about my daughter when she decided that she wanted to go to a historically black college. And I said, well, I don't know if that's a good idea, right? Going off my experience, I think you should stay here locally. And she decided she was going to an HBCU. And so I figured, as a good dad, I would just hold her feet to the fire. And I said, well, listen, if you're going to go to an HBCU, because I didn't understand HBCUs, I said, you can go to Spelman, or you can go to Howard, or you can go to Hampton. Those are the only three. And if you don't choose one of those three, then all this money I've been saving for you for college, I'm not going to give it to you.
Oh,
And you know what she told me?
what?
She said, okay, well, I guess I'll just have to figure out another way, take out loans and do what I have to do.
Wow.
That's what I said.
Wow.
I said,
That
you
is
know
really
what?
admirable.
I have to learn that she's going to live her life, and the only thing I could do is support her.
Speaking of living in life and parenting, how many children do you have?
I have four children.
Tell me the ages.
My daughter is 30. It's my oldest. My daughter's Kasani, the princess. My oldest son, Makai, is 24. And then I have a younger son, Lucas, who is 7.
7.
And then I have my youngest son, Benjamin, who is 5.
You started all over again, huh?
I started all over again. I was good at it, so I figured do it
So,
again.
as an educator, what did you do to prepare your children to be financially responsible? Speaking towards generational wealth, we have to actually train them when they're young, because
Absolutely.
when they're 25 and 26, it's a little bit late. However, you can still have the family values. What are your family values, and how did you transfer to multi-generations of young people?
My family values are God first, and letting that drive all of my other values, meaning that I'm not chasing after things because I know I already have everything that
Wow.
I need. And when I need something else, it can come to me. So that is the family value that we all strive for. I would say, the best way to teach children is through practice.
Yes.
It's not so much what I say, it's what I do. And so it's interesting. I was just having this conversation with my son and my brother on Sunday. We're having dinner, and we were talking about shopping. And he said, yeah, my dad taught me how to look at the price per ounce
Wow.
when you're shopping, and figure out what's the best value that you're going to buy. And it wasn't because we were penny pinching at that time, but it was because I was teaching him about the value of a dollar. and just living by that, and not just saying it, but actually living by it. So I think that is the best. That's the best tool that you can give your best way to teach your children.
Mm. And how does your children feel about you teaching them that this young?
I think they're happy with it.
Do you think they're happy?
Not the younger ones,
Yes.
because we're having conversations every day about, Dad, I just got to buy this. If I just buy this, let me get this. But my older ones, they've appreciated the guidance that I've shared with them, and it's reflected in how they move. If I could just brag about my daughter, 30 years old, she's a homeowner. She's owned a home now for probably 4 years.
Wow.
Self-sufficient, takes care of herself. My son has a great job, and living on his own, and neither of them, and this is important to that generational wealth, which we'll get to,
Mm-hmm.
neither of them depend on me for any of their living expenses.
Wow.
And what that means is that now I've got this additional income that I can use to invest. Invest in my other kids, college fund, invest in my own retirement fund, invest in my fund. We talk about that.
Yes.
So they're freeing me up so that I can live the life that I want to live.
Wow. So we're talking about apprenticeship, mentorship, teaching your values to your kids.
Yep.
And also, speaking of, and have them ultimately do what every mother and father wants them to do, is to be financially independent.
I thought you were going to say leave the house.
Yeah.
But yours, it sounds better. Financially
leave the house
independent.
too. Leave the house too. So what is generational wealth? When you think about generational wealth and you have, I would say, pretty close to half of a basketball team as a part of your family, what do you think about the legacy of, how are you planning on leaving a legacy for the family, not for your children or your grandchildren, but for your great-grandchildren, maybe who you'll never meet?
It's interesting. I was reflecting on this. I had this goal years and years ago, decades ago, I would say. I said, I want to be able to give a house to my children so that they can start investing, so that they can give a house to their children. And to me, that's generational wealth. We're passing along appreciating assets to our families. And so that's how I would define generational wealth. But I do want to say this. I think if we're going to talk about generational wealth, we have to talk about the systemic racism that exists and the forces that are set up that prevent us from having that level of success.
Yeah.
I talked about, like, if you're going to teach, you have to teach by being an example.
Right.
Well, you can't be an example if you haven't learned it yourself. And the reality is there's not enough people having honest conversations about financial literacy, what you do, like what you've committed your life to do, going around and teaching people about how to be financially well, how to have this strong, healthy perspective from a financial perspective. So I think we have to address that. And I also think that we have to pause and acknowledge that, particularly being an African American, we have our own unique challenges.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
racial wealth gap is real.
Yes.
For every $100 that a Caucasian family has in wealth, we have $15. And so when we talk about trying to build generational wealth, that gap has gotten even wider over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
So we have to address that, it's important that as we have these conversations about what do we do in the future, acknowledging that there are systemic roadblocks.
Yes, there are.
That we have to be aware of, and then we have to commit, Veronica, to saying, and I'm still going to knock it down. I'm still going to move ahead. When I get a bump on my head because it didn't work out, I'm not going to give up.
So one of the things that I try to maintain is I have a trust, and all of my assets are in a trust. the children know where the trust is. And because I'm a comic, I write jokes in the trust. I leave things to people that I don't, where I really don't have a lot of assets. So I'm thinking that my kids know that I'm weird. Sometimes I can't even help myself. I actually tell them the jokes before I die, and they're like, "Oh, mom." But I have a trust because I want to protect my assets, and I also don't want them to be overly taxed. The only problem I have right now is my trust is in my house, and it needs to be somewhere else because if something happens to the house, the trust is gone. Do you have a trust, and do you have all your assets in it? And do you have anything in the trust that makes sure that the children, God bless them, there's good ones and there's ones that aren't so good. If they make a lot of mistakes, that they don't ruin it for generations ahead.
So yes, I do have a trust. No, not all of my assets are in the trust because from the time when my wife and I put the trust together to now, we've accumulated more assets, and we keep saying, "When are you going to go update the trust? When are you going to go update the trust?" So work in process with that. But I will say this about generational wealth. This is something I've allowed myself to decouple.
Oh, okay.
I'm gifting my kids assets when I pass away. What they choose to do with that after I'm gone is up to them. And so if I'm working very hard to instill strong values in them so that they will make decisions that align with what their values are. But and again, this goes back to that first story I told about me trying to direct my daughter's life and realizing she's her own person. She's going to live her life, and all I can do is support her, and trust that the values that I instilled in her for the first 18 years of her life stuck. And so whatever they choose to do with that money, God bless them.
Well, I've thought a lot about it myself, and I think that in order to instill that my young ones have intergenerational wealth, is that I want to stipulate that they use the money from the trust to buy a house.
Yeah.
And if they sell the house, the money has to go back into the trust for generations to come. But to think long term like that, a generational wealth mindset, what do you think you need to have that? Yeah. What types of things do you think we have to consider when you're not thinking just one generation? We're thinking multiple generations.
One thing that's coming to my mind is you have to learn the art of contentment.
That's a great one. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Because what I've realized as I've worked hard throughout my career and got a bigger house and a bigger house and a nicer car and a nicer car, I've realized that the bigger house doesn't equate to happier. The nicer car, better clothes doesn't relate to happier. And so you have to learn to be content with what you have, and be a good steward of what's been given to you. And when you get past that, and there is a basic level of need, so I don't want to discredit that. And in California, in the Bay Area, our basic level of needs is higher
yes.
Than other states and other counties here in California. But once you can reach that level of contentment, then you could stop thinking about yourself and you start thinking about, like, my children and my children's children. Did I tell you I'm a grandfather?
No,
Yeah,
congratulations.
My 30-year-old daughter has she is a foster mom to a 4-year-old girl. And so I'm also a grandfather. So it's not me just thinking about my 4 children. It's thinking about my daughter and her daughter, and how am I helping my daughter be set up so that she can pass along some of what I have to the granddaughter.
So one of the things I've done with my children, like I said, I have told them all about where my financial assets are. And I also tell them what I would like for them to eventually achieve with the assets. that, it would be for my children and my great-grandchildren. Have you shared that with your children, exactly what your finances are? I mean, because I feel like there's a little bit of secrecy around finances. I don't know if it's specifically in the Black community, but I know that I never knew what my parents' finances were, other than my mom taught me that I need to pay my bills and I needed to spend my money fast, because if you didn't spend it fast, you might die and have money in the bank. So I had like both of those going on at the same time. So do you share your finances with your at least the two older ones? So if something should happen, but you're also I'm a single woman.
Mm-hmm.
So my children, I mean, they are like, I have to tell them everything, because if I'm gone, there's no other man to. And I'm kind of happy about that. There's not a man that I have to explain it to.
Right.
So I explain it to my children. But how do you feel about that? I mean, I was very, very comfortable telling my son all of my business. And every time I changed something, I would call him up until I kept saying I'm in the fourth quarter. He goes, "No, Mom, you're in the bottom of the third." But I told him everything, but my daughter came while I was discussing it, and I didn't feel quite as comfortable with her knowing everything. But they both know everything now, which I think that when I'm gone, it's going to be better for them.
Absolutely.
But how do your children know your finances?
I'm an open book.
Are you really?
Them. Absolutely. And I think they know more than they care to know. And they probably don't remember all the things that I've told them, which is okay, because at this age and at this point in their lives, I want them focusing on them.
Yes.
And living their life. And that's what they're doing. But absolutely. And I'll share a story about just the transparency.
Okay.
My son, he was graduating from college. This is probably 2 years ago. And he had his job lined up, had his salary lined up. And so he was he was going to school in Texas. So my daughter went to an HBCU, sidebar. My oldest niece went to an HBCU. My second oldest niece went to an HBCU. And then my son went to an HBCU.
Wow.
So my daughter started something because me and my brothers and sisters, we all went to school in California. So we didn't know what it meant to leave, California. But she started something. So my son's at an HBCU, and he's getting ready to come back. He's trying to figure out where he's going to live. And I said, have you sat down and did a budget? Thinking about, like, how much money are you making and what realistically can you do? And he said, I did. You want to see it? And I said, absolutely, I want to see it. And he had a whole spreadsheet, and I don't even remember what was on the spreadsheet. If it was right or wrong.
It didn't matter. It was a budget.
I think I had tears in my eyes. That's why I couldn't see the screen. But and that's just a reminder of he's watching.
Yeah.
He's watching what I'm doing. And so that's the level of transparency that we have, because there's a trust factor there. And not every family can say this.
Yeah.
My kids are not after me or relying on me for money, and I'm not after them or relying on them for their money. We've all learned how to grow up and be financially independent adults, and I think that's important.
Did you get that from your family?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I grew up in a single family home. My mom, mother to 4 children, and she was phenomenal at it. But what I did know, even though she didn't talk to me about money, I did know that money was an issue. I did know that we struggled. We were joking about this, how when we would go to McDonald's, we ate out a lot. We'd go to McDonald's and we'd go through the drive-thru, and my mom would tell us we can each get one item. So it's either a burger, fries, or a drink. And so right there at that early age, we're making decisions. Now, do I want the fries? The fries will last longest because you can eat them one at a time. That burger is going to be juicy. But that was part learning how to manage money, but also part accepting the fact that no, you can't get the whole meal. I was driving past an AM PM, and I remember we'd go in and get the 2 for $1 hamburgers. So it's just those little things let me know that money was tight. But while money was tight, and I don't know how she did it, but God knows, we took vacations every year.
What?
We got in a van and we drove to LA. And we had, whether it was Disneyland or Magic Mountain, we had a vacation. Now, it may have been 8 of us sleeping in the motel, not the hotel, the motel. We definitely were eating fried chicken that had been cooked the night before on the drive down, or tuna sandwiches that had been made before. But all that didn't matter to us when we were kids. All I remember is and maybe we didn't go every year, but I think we went every year on a vacation.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think I only went on one vacation when I was a teenager, and that was to Disneyland. Yeah. So I have a specific question. What effective strategies for individuals and families to build generational wealth? You talked about budgeting. You have to budget.
Absolutely.
Perhaps there's a few more suggestions.
2 things I would say is, number one, we have to get out of debt. So that the budgeting piece is based off of your values, and it's also based off of how much of my income can I put toward debt, particularly that debt that represents an experience that you're no longer enjoying. So think about
that's a good point.
That trip to Disneyland, right? That went all on the credit card. That was a great experience back in September, but I'm still paying for that now. Okay, that experience is gone. Or that beautiful meal that we had, went out to eat, Ruth Chris, and ate great steak. Well, guess what? I'm hungry the next day, right? And so those are experiences.
That's a buzzkill.
I'm sorry. But
this is going to be showing on Valentine's Day.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's going to be very personal.
Well, yeah. Make it last.
Yes.
Buy some jewelry. So get out of debt.
Say that again.
Buy some jewelry.
Okay.
That's my next thing. Is we have to focus on getting out of debt, number one. Number two, we have to focus on buying appreciating assets. You talked about a house. That is an appreciating asset. The houses that I bought all have appreciated, gone up in value. Investing in businesses, like, solid businesses.
Right.
Investing in collectibles, investing in jewelry. Those are all examples of things that are appreciating assets, or holding their value. As nice of cars that we have and we love to drive, the reality is they lose their value.
But I know you love cars too.
I do love cars.
So I know this is personal. Oh, go ahead, tell me about your cars.
About my cars?
Yeah.
I have a Tesla.
Yeah.
I have 2 Teslas. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know if I'm not proud of it or not. I have 2 Teslas.
Yeah.
Because I love cars.
Because you love cars, and you've loved cars since you were a teenager.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
I remember from your book, he wrote this amazing book. It's called Living Healthy: 6 Simple Strategies to Achieve a Healthy Life, Physically, Spiritually, and Financially. He has some great stories in here, and it's a coffee table book now for me. And for attending this webinar, we're going to be sharing 6 of this fabulous book with you in the webinar. So make sure that you look in your mailbox, because it might be one of these amazing books just for you.
Yes, and for the other 994 people that don't get a book, they're available on Amazon and iBooks as well.
Perfect. So I was reading your book, and I was fascinated with the story of what happened to you when you were 30. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, so as I recall, it's about the age of 30.
Yeah.
I think that's when I started to think really about what's important in life and what is it that I truly value. So I was blessed to come right out of college, right out of undergrad, with a great job in accounting, making good money at the time, a whopping $31,500. Yeah, it was rolling in the dough. And I was but I was also chasing after what other people wanted me to chase after. And so
right.
I think at the age of 30, I really started to pause and reflect on what is it that I'm really doing in my life and what's really important. And so that's when I landed on the 6 simple strategies to achieve a healthy life. And when I mean by healthy life, I mean living the life that you want to live.
Yes.
From a spiritual perspective, from a physical perspective, and also from a financial perspective. And those 6 strategies are, first of all, do it first. So whatever it is that you believe is most important, do it first. From a financial perspective, when you create that budget at the beginning of the month and you say, I can put away $300 into my savings, do it first.
So that's pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first.
Right on.
Pay yourself first. The second one is forgive yourself.
Oh, I love that one.
We all make mistakes. We all make bad decisions, and you can't just ruminate in that mistake.
Yeah.
Forgive yourself, to me, has a lot to do with the debt we got ourselves into. Eric, you made some mistakes. It's okay. Let's climb out of debt, because I was in some serious debt. Even though I was making a whopping $31,000, I had accumulated a lot of debt.
Yes.
And so I had to learn to forgive myself and then work myself out of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of my education is about financial compassion.
Absolutely.
Because if you can't forgive yourself, because none of us are perfect, and we're all doing the best we can with our ability and awareness at the time.
Yeah.
So, there has to be a little bit of love into the picture.
Absolutely. Loving on yourself,
yeah.
First and foremost.
So what's number 3?
Number 3 is being consistent. So I teach a class, and you know this because you've been to my class, thank you, on personal financial management, which I call How to Become a Millionaire.
Ooh.
And that gets everyone's attention. But then I tell them, if you want to be a millionaire, you have to be consistent.
Yes.
We have to believe in the power of compounding. We have to consistently save. I'd rather you save $50 on a consistent basis than waiting every 6 months and putting $300 in. Because now you're losing on the compounding interest, just as simple as possible. So we have to be consistent from a financial perspective. The fourth one is reducing distractions. And so...
You mean my phone?
Yeah, I mean your phone. Back when we were younger, it was that JCPenney's catalog that came in. But now they've found ways to just constantly take us off of our goal. And so, we have to be mindful of that and understand that there are forces, the American consumer market is working against us. Us as Black folks, but just us as citizens.
Yes.
The global economy is working against Americans.
They used to call us citizens. Now they call us consumers.
Exactly. That's what we are.
Yep.
That's what we're a world built on consumers. And so how do you stand out? How are you peculiar from everyone else? Acknowledging that just because it looks good right now, I don't have to buy it.
Yeah. Delayed gratification.
Yep. My next one, the 5th one, is start small and gradually increase.
Yeah, that's good news for everybody.
For everybody.
Everybody, because everybody can start small. That's micro saving.
Yeah. There's a parable in the Bible where Jesus the Christ tells Peter to push his boat out in the water just a little. And after he pushed it out just a little, then he pushed it out further to receive all the fish that his net couldn't even hold. But he had to start small. And so when we make these grand goals of, I'm getting out of debt. When we make these grand goals, I'm going to get out of debt by the end of the year, and then we don't achieve that, we start to think goals don't work.
Yeah.
But it's not about getting out of debt at the end of the year. Can we cut our debt in half? Can we cut it by 20%? Right? And just starting small and then gradually increasing.
I'm going to quote from your book. You said, celebrate the process, not the product.
Yes.
So even if you start and you have the belief, if it can be done, it can be done.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
right on.
Thank you for quoting out of my book.
Yes.
And then the sixth one is educate yourself. We have to become focused on how do I understand more.
Yes.
Like, how do I understand the stock market? How do I understand wills and trusts? And how do I understand what collectibles are going to
Yes.
are going to appreciate in assets? And so we have to podcasts like this, great books you can listen to, or listen to or read, taking classes, lots of different ways that we can learn how to build up knowledge for ourselves. I think we have too much access at our fingertips that we should just be content with what Erick said. No, don't go off what Erick said. I'm telling you things, go research it yourself, and then make a decision, an informed decision for yourself.
Yeah, I call that knowledge without wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
You can get all the knowledge that you want, but if you don't have wisdom, you can't bring it all together.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. You said learn, earn, and then return. That's the thing for generational wealth. Learn, earn, and return. How can we start the process of getting generational wealth for ourselves?
You mean for our children?
We're there for our children, but what should I do tomorrow so that I can start building for the generational wealth from my lineage?
So I think, so we talked about debt, getting out of debt, buying appreciating assets.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I would have to go back and first establishing what's your goal, and not what is your goal, but why is that your goal? I'll tell you a story about my grandmother who passed away in August of 2015. And when my grandmother, all I've known all my life, I've known she's had a house. Mm. She had a house in Dublin, California, and then she had a house in Fairfield, California. But when she passed away, we had to come together to help pay for some of those expenses, to help cover that. And my takeaway, I was having this conversation with one of my cousins, is I'm not going to let that be the case for me.
Yes.
I want my children to be able to live their life without me having to be a burden. So the first thing I have to do is make sure I'm taking care of myself. I know this is hard to hear as a parent, but I am one, so I could say it. I have to save for my retirement first before I save for my children's college education.
I hear you.
Because they can get a loan to go to college. I can't get a loan to be retired. I've just got to live off that Social Security and whatever else I've been able to save on my own. And so I think we have to be mindful of that, right? Is that we're taking care of ourselves, and then so that we're not going to be a burden on our children, and let them, just doing that. We talk about generational wealth. If I can leave you without debt, I'm already creating generational wealth. I'm leaving you a house that doesn't have a mortgage attached to it, a second mortgage, or an equity line of credit attached to it, where they think they're getting this house, and the house is in disarray, or it's burdened in debt, and so now that's another burden that we're putting on our children.
Yeah, I had one of my girlfriends had her father, unbeknownst to her, put a reverse mortgage on their house, and when he died, the wife didn't know about it. So, and what happened was people came into the neighborhood and miseducated a whole community about, and sold them a bill of good on reverse mortgages that created homelessness. So I love that what you were talking about when you said that you have to be educated, and you have to be open to knowing that there's predatory lenders out there, and there's predatory people out there.
Yes, and predatory apps out there too.
Oh, predatory apps.
Yes.
Yikes.
Yeah, you gotta love free trials. What's 6 months going to hurt? What's 7 days going to hurt? Just give us your credit card. And then you're not budgeting. You got these subscriptions and, $10, $15, $20, that's not going to kill you. But multiply that by 5, 6, 7, and it's eating away at your ability to be investing, to be saving, to be building this generational wealth.
Okay. One last question. What do you want our audience to leave with today on our discussion on generational wealth? You talked about a lot of great things. You talked about making sure that you have wills. You talked about making sure that you don't have debt, that you're not a burden on your children. You talked about taking care of yourself financially and fiscally so that you're not. I went to a seminar this week, and a young lady talked about she was Hispanic, and her mom and father did not trust banks, and they did everything in cash. And now they're sick, and she has to take care of them, and it's a burden. But even if you have a lot of responsibility, there's still some things that you can do to start generational wealth. Do you have any suggestions, or any parting words? Any parting words?
We all can leave. What I'd like to see is us committing to leave something. To leave something. Some of us are burdened in debt, and we're not going to be able to get out of it while continuing to live a decent life. That's someone's reality. But you can still leave something. Can you pass along some values that are important?
Awesome.
I was listening to an album this morning from the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, and I'm singing every word. And I thought about it, and I said, man, this is what my mom used to play in the car.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's something that she's passed along to me. That's better than money. Mom, I don't need money because you taught me values.
Yes.
You taught me the importance of family and the importance of giving to other people. I have this millionaire pyramid, and one of the aspects of becoming a millionaire is giving, which sounds counterintuitive, but you have to be willing to give. And if you can't give money, you can give time. You can give your knowledge. You can give away you can give some of your resources.
Yeah.
And all that is just sowing seeds that will take root.
Well, giving just shows that you're not in scarcity.
That's
that
right.
You know that I am the source of my money, and money isn't the source of me.
Yeah.
So I loved giving freely because I've never been without money while I was giving. Sounds weird, but I've always.
Not to me.
Yeah. It just seems to multiply who I am.
And let me just remind you, in case you forgot, the first time we worked together, you spoke at the nonprofit organization with the high school students. And at the end, and no one knew you were going to do this. I'm not even sure if you knew it, but you created a scholarship, and you gave money that day to some of the students that were in that meeting. And those are the things that told me everything I needed to know about you. And that was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
All of the young people ended up, I told them that I would give them a scholarship if they wrote an essay on what they learned. And what happened was 22 of them did. And so Patelco and I put our money together and started a Veronica Dangerfield Scholarship. It was awesome. Well, we so appreciate the time that you spent today. You were and are an amazing leader, and
Thank you.
Your work at the college is amazing. You are a spectacular dad, and before you get out, tell them how you won Husband of the Year award.
Oh, the Husband of the Year award.
Oh my God, I love that story.
So this is aligns with being consistent and starting small and gradually increasing. I read a book, And I can't take credit for this. I got this from a book. And the book said that every night, write down something, express a gratitude to about your wife. And so I started doing that. Every night I would write something in this book that was sitting by my bedside about my wife, something that I appreciated about her that day. And then I believe it was her birthday or it was Christmas. It was some event where you're supposed to give a gift. And I gave her that book that just had 6 or 9 months of just gratitude.
And yeah, and it was personal. It was detailed. It showed that you had to pay attention. You had to be in the moment. And it just divorce-proof your entire marriage. Because I know that if I had that book, it'd be in my purse. Look at page number 7. That's what he said that about me.
It's also good advice for saving.
Yeah.
Because it's something that I started with excitement, and then give yourself a week or 2 weeks or a month, and I go, this is stupid, and I haven't even accomplished anything. Taking all this time out, and what have I don't even got half a book written. But even then, I continued to persist. And sometimes you don't get to see the reward of your labor until the end. But if you have values, if you have faith that like what you're doing now is working towards something, that's when you lean into that faith to kind of get you to that.
Create what you pay attention to.
Yes.
Where energy goes, energy flows. And I always like that because we can all do that. We can all create better habits, and we can love each other more. We can save more money, and most of all, we can bequeath a legacy to our children and our great-grandchildren by being conscious and intentional, having a will, having a plan, and having a goal, just like you said, Eric. So I just wanted to thank you from the bottom and the top, in the middle of my heart, for taking the time out of your busy day. I appreciate your book. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I appreciate the impact that you have on the generations coming up at Las Positas College. He teaches there, and he's been teaching there for 4 years?
7 or 8 years.
He's teaching for 7 years. What an amazing impact he's having for the young folks. So, yay, you!
Thank you. Thank you all.